Today is a distinctive lens with which to read a psalm. Many of us have been watching the inauguration, and the inauguration is a lens that seems so well suited for today, Psalm 89, in that Psalm 89 is about the need for a Davidic king, which is to say, embedded in Psalm 89 is the understanding that a nation flourishes to the degree to which its leaders manifest the qualities of divine aspiration. And so Psalm 89 is about the longing for the kind of leader that will lead in the Davidic way. And it has at the very beginning, in verse 3, three words that I'm going to take time to spend time with. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, which I translate as a world of kindness is built, because that links to a song written in just the last few years by a conservative rabbi, then in Berkeley, now married to Neshama Carlebach and living in New York. And we have a special honoree this morning, my beloved friend, Cantor Shula Kalir Merton, who's going to sing the song that is taken from verse 3, which is frankly all I really knew about this lengthy psalm before preparing for it. So we'll get the privilege of hearing Cantor Shula, and we do so in the context that she 8 days ago became a savta, a grandmother for the first time, and her granddaughter's name is Shira, which means song. And much to celebrate as Cantor Shula sings this song, both to show a piece of Psalm 89, but more to honor her granddaughter on the 8th day, the day of entering into covenant traditionally, and because it's always good to hear Cantor Shula sing. I'll add, because the lens that I'm going to be using today in reading this psalm is the lens of inauguration and the importance of a good king. And so toward that, I also want to acknowledge that Cantor Shula was born in Jerusalem, and in that sense, with her parents, came to America, and her dad being a rabbi, originally from Germany, Rabbi Kalir, and with her mom, because America was this place of promise, of opportunity. And in that sense, today is a day to honor Shula, but it's also to honor America and to emphasize the importance of a king. As I shared yesterday, before dawn is the darkest day. Yesterday was the darkest psalm, and today there is an evocation of light, just a ray of light, because there is a significant segment of this psalm, which is the third longest of the 150 psalms. At 53 verses, I'll have less time to analyze, to simply read you my translation, which I will note did take a long time to work on. But there's a trajectory in this psalm. So I want to point out the trajectory as I now pull up the psalm for us to look at. Psalm 89, taken from that phrase in verse 3, a world of kindness is built. Heavens, you establish your faithfulness in them. To say this psalm, and I just give you this for orientation, has three major components. Verses 1 to 19 describes the power of God in nature and a God who appointed a king. And that king, King David, is promised in the second book of Samuel, chapter 7, is promised that his descendants will endure as king. And if we had more time, I would read to you from the second book of Samuel, chapter 7, verses 12 to 17, because a lot of the phrasing in verses 20 to 38 echo this promise. This promise, again, with ending with the word Selah, that drum sound marking the end of a section. So verses 20 to 38 are a reiteration of God, you promised us that you would stay supportive of the king, of a ruler who would be a righteous ruler. Though I will acknowledge that you'll see in verses 31 and 32 the word if, im. God's relationship to the king is conditional. And that by extension, God's relationship to the people is conditional, which we see repeatedly in Torah. You see that in Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 11, if you obey my commandments. So if his children forsake my Torah, my law, they do not follow. If my statutes they proclaim, my commandments they do not keep, then I will visit with the rod their transgressions and with plagues their iniquity. So that the relationship to David, to the ruler, is conditional. You have to live up to a quality of the key word that gets repeated. Here's the key word that gets repeated 7 times. Chesed, kindness, emunatcha, and your faithfulness. This is how God is described, but it's also the conditions for the king. And you'll see it as the envelope for this entire psalm, appearing in verse 2 and then again in verse 50. Chasdecha, your kindness, be'emunatecha, and your faithfulness. Those two qualities, chesed ve'emet, kindness and faithfulness, or also emet, truth. But truth, emet, and you can hear emet and emunatecha are related. God is identified with kindness and truth, dash, kindness and faithfulness. And then the concluding lines, this is the end of book 3. Book 1 ended with Psalm 41. Book 2 ended with Psalm 72. Here, book 3 ends with Psalm 53 with kind of a formulaic, blessed is Adonai forever. Amen, amen. I can't help myself but point out, because I'm looking now at the trajectory and the flow of this psalm, that Psalm 52 has as the last words really of the content of the psalm before the formulaic 53, those who disgrace the footsteps of your anointed one. This phrase, ikvot meshichecha, the footsteps of your anointed one, in 2 places in the Talmud, Sanhedrin 97a and Sota 49b, is described as the following. This is what it'll be like just before the Messiah. The footsteps. Brazen audacity will increase in unprecedented proportions. Students will defy their teachers. Children will curse their parents, and all authority will be ridiculed. So that creates the trajectory in which the longing and the claim is, God, fulfill the promise you made to Nathan, through Nathan to King David, that there would be a descendant of King David, meaning a righteous ruler, to enable us to be close to you. And so, without further presentation, Psalm 89, a world of kindness is built. A maskil of Ethan the Ezrachite. I'll point out that Ethan is the brother of yesterday's psalmist, according to 1 Chronicles 2:6. All right, I'll start over. A maskil of Ethan the Ezrachite, Of the kindness of Adonai forever I will sing. For generation to generation I will make known your faithfulness with my mouth. For I say, a world of kindness is built. Heavens, you establish your faithfulness in them. And now God speaks. I have cut a covenant with my chosen one. I have sworn to David, my servant, forever I will establish your seed and build up for generation to generation your throne. Selah. Let the heavens praise your wonders, Adonai, also your faithfulness in the assembly of holy ones. For who in the skies can compare to Adonai? Who among the children of gods can be likened to Adonai? El is revered in the council of many holy beings, held in awe by all who surround God. Adonai, God of hosts, who is like you, mighty Yah? Your faithfulness surrounds you. It is you who rules the swelling of the sea. When surging are its waves, you still them. It is you who crushed as if a corpse Rahab. With an arm of your strength you scattered your enemies. To you is the heaven, also to you is the earth, the world and its fullness. You have founded them. North and south, you have created them. Tabor and Hermon, in your name sing joyously. To you is an arm with might. Strong is your hand and exalted is your right hand. Tzedek umishpat mechon kis echa. Justice and law are the base of your throne. Chesed ve'emet yekadmu fanecha. Kindness and truth go before your face. Ashrei ha'am yodea trua. Happy is the people who know the trua. Words we recite after hearing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, verse 16. Happy is the people who know the trua. Adonai, in the light of your face they walk. In your name they rejoice all the day. And through your tzedek, through your justice are they exalted. For the splendor of their strength is you, and by your will exalted is our horn. For Adonai is our shield, and the Holy One of Israel is our sovereign. Then you spoke in a vision to your devotees and said, I have placed support upon a mighty person. I have exalted one chosen from the people. I have found David, my servant. With my holy oil I have anointed him. With whom my hand shall be established with him, also my arm shall give courage to him. No enemy shall overpower him, and the child of wickedness shall not afflict him. And I will crush before his face his adversaries, and those that hate him strike down. So my faithfulness and my kindness will be with him, and through my name will be exalted in his horn. And I will place upon the sea his hand, and on the rivers his right hand. He shall address me. You are my parent, my God, and the rock of my deliverance. Also, I will appoint him firstborn, the highest of the sovereigns of earth. Forever will I keep for him my kindness, and my covenant is faithfully his. And I will set to endure forever his seat and his throne as the days of heaven. If his children forsake my Torah and my laws, they do not follow. If my statutes they profane and my commandments they do not keep, then I will visit with the rod their transgressions and with plagues their iniquity. But my kindness, chasdi, I will not negate from him, nor will I betray my faithfulness, emunati. I will not profane my covenant, or has gone out of my lips, I will not change. Once I have sworn by my holiness, surely to David I will not disappoint. His seed forever will endure, and his throne as the sun before me, as the moon established forever, and as a witness in the sky faithful. Selah. And now a turn in tone. And you have rejected and repulsed. You became furious with your anointed one. You spurned the covenant of your servant. You profaned to the ground his crown. You broke down all his fences. You brought his strongholds to ruin, looting him all passers-by, becoming a disgrace to his neighbors. You have exalted the right hand of his adversaries. You caused rejoicing of all his enemies also. You turned back the flint of his sword and did not uphold him in the battle. You have turned down his brightness, and his throne to the ground cast down. You have shortened the days of his youth. You have cloaked him with shame. Selah. How long, Adonai, will you hide yourself forever, burning like fire of your wrath? Remember, I am what? Transient. For what futility did you create all the children of a mortal? What strong person will live and not see death? Who can save his soul from the hand of Sheol? Selah. Where are your original kindnesses, Adonai, which you swore to David in your faithfulness? Remember, my supreme, the disgrace of your servants I bear in my bosom of so many peoples. Those who disgrace are your enemies, Adonai. Those who disgrace the footsteps of your anointed one. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen v'amen. Blessed is Adonai forever. Amen and amen. Well, I'm tempted to now begin to parse this, but today a little bit differently. I pause for your reactions because I'll set it up for you to react and share some comments. What I find powerful is the flow of a psalm that begins extolling God's power as creator. And more, a God of covenant who has chosen in verse 4 a servant to be the monarch, with a promise in verse 5 that it would continue, and then extolling the power of God in nature on this plane of existence. I can't help myself because I know we have a number of literature teachers. Here's a little quote from Milton's Paradise in reference to this opening. Jehovah's incomparableness is ever being celebrated in heaven. The angelic beings, who best can tell, as standing nearest to the throne of God and partaking most of God's nature, know that there is none like God. And so that these verses resonate in our great English literature. They are at the same time beginning with the flow in verse 20. Focused in God's power, echoing again earlier scripture, second book of Samuel, all the way to verse 38, a flow of, I will set to endure forever his seed, verse 30, and his throne is the days of heaven. And yet, with the baying of Selah, some translate as everlasting, some say it's like amen, some again see it as a musical break. With verse 39, it's beginning with verse 39 that I shared in my introductory letter that Ibn Ezra writes of a pious man in Spain who found it heretical to speak of God this way. And Ibn Ezra says, no, this is not the psalmist, this is the echo of the enemy speaking. While others, like Radak Rabbi David Kimchi, said, no, this is the psalmist challenging God. And I now pause. For to come out of darkness, as we saw yesterday, with the brother of Ethan, that being Haman, is to be able to honestly complain, to honestly feel and express pain. This psalm was read across Jewish history as a psalm of the exile. beckoning God to remember the promise. And so here in pain, that promise is presented as a betrayal from verses 39 all the way really to 50. And it's with 50 that you get the inclusio. Again, those key words, chasdecha be'emunatecha, your kindness and your faithfulness, which are in verse 4. Those become the frame of this entire psalm and the light that points forward. The faith that God is a creator and God's creation, God's covenant, are grounded in kindness and truth, kindness and faithfulness. And so that leads to the closing 51 and 52 in terms of flow, where the word cherpu, disgrace, is mentioned 3 times. Once in 51 and 52. You know, in Yiddish, there's an expression, a shanda and a cherpa. Shanda and a cherpa is an act of ignominy. It says a shanda is an embarrassment and a disgrace. So the shanda, that's really Yiddish. The cherpa, which is Yiddish too, comes out of these 3 words, concluding verses 51 and 52 of disgrace. But here it's your enemies disgrace your people. Your people. Don't forget, they're disgracing your anointed one. And by extension, God, they are disgracing you. And we've seen that appear in Psalms before. Do not let our enemies disgrace you. With words of hope at the end, which is like Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, blessed is the true judge, and yet pointing forward. Book 4 will be more uplifting. But with that, I'm going to close the share. I hope some of you have printed out the text, because I want to hear from you some of your reactions to this flow on inaugural day of the longing for the Davidic rule, and God identified and David identified with those 2 key words, chesed ve'emet, kindness and faithfulness, truth. Some reactions. You'll have to unmute yourself. Ken or Shula, did you unmute yourself to speak?
I unmuted myself.
All right. So,
and
yeah, go ahead.
I didn't really have my hand up, so I'm still thinking about something to say. Maybe somebody else wants to talk first.
Before anybody speaks, I want to hear you sing, because it'll soften it. So let me do a commentary on verse 3, and then Ken or Shula will show you how this phrase, taken out of a psalm longing for Davidic rule, in the introduction, verse 3, let me pull it up again, and let me teach verse 3, and then Ken or Shula will sing to us, and I'll give a little context to this. But I want to, as somebody who has taken on this opportunity of translation, I'm humbled to know how all translation is interpretation. And so here, verse 3, for I say, Olam Chesed Yibaneh, which is the title of the song that Ken or Shula is going to sing. Here's the first catch. The first word, Olam, has 2 different meanings, widely used. One is world. And some of the translators, like Rashi, will translate it as world. Others, the other use is forever. And so is it forever kindness is built, or is it a world is built with kindness? Both are possible. Let me read you some different translations. This is from a little pocket book I really like called the Mitsuda. It's Orthodox. A world that manifests your loving kindness you did build. Adin Steinsaltz says, in contrast, kindness is forever sustained. My friend Martin Cohen, in his translation, adds words, the world shall be sustained with mercy, just as you order the heavens. So that's the first thing to underscore, is how you take the three words, olam, chesed, yibaneh, three words in Hebrew. There's two problems in translation. One is that olam has two possible meanings, widely used. Chesed is kindness, though some understand it as a particular kind of kindness, as the kindness of covenant. It's often linked, as yesterday, with covenant explicitly, though in my mind, not necessarily so. And the third issue is the grammar of yibaneh. In Hebrew, there's only two tenses. I've shared this before. There is the perfect, which is present and past, and then there is imperfect, which is present, future, and jussive or exertative. This yibaneh can be, with the yud in the beginning, either is built, will be built, is being built. All are possible, or let it be built. So it could be a world of kindness, let it be built, encouraging God to fulfill. So to pull it together before Cantor Shula shares with us a song, the words that the song she's going to sing are based on, as is often the case with Psalms. A phrase will be pulled out and turned into song, and maybe, as you'll hear, expanded. The song she is singing was composed by Rabbi Menachem Creditor, who is a conservative rabbi and a musician, now married, as I mentioned, to a great musician, and that's Neshama Carlbach. All right, with that as introduction, a great musician, Cantor Shula honoring her granddaughter on her 8th day, her firstborn granddaughter, Shira, which means song. Go ahead, Shula.
Thank you so much. Just want to remind you guys, I am retired. So the voice is in slight retirement. Olam chesed yibaneh, la 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 la. Olam chesed yibaneh, la 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 la. Olam chesed yibaneh, la 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 la. Olam chesed yibaneh, la 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 la. I will build this word from love, la 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 la. And you must build this world from love, la 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 la. And if we build this word from love, la 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 la, then God will build this word from love, la 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 la. Olam chesed yibaneh, la 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 la. Olam chesed yibaneh, la 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 la.
Shula, you're wonderful. And what a wonderful way to celebrate being Safta Shula and honoring your granddaughter Shira with a song of hope. A world of love shall be built, a world of kindness shall be built.
I hope I get a recording of this meeting, because one day I'll play it to her.
Yeah, it'll be up on the it'll be up on the website. Yeah, and you'll be able to play it for her. Well, just a couple of comments today before our Kaddish. Anybody want to um, share any thoughts?
I mean, I did have a thought, if I may,
You
now
can.
completely different.
Go ahead,
And that
Shula,
is,
and then Julia.
I'm always interested in the context in which a piece of biblical writing has been created, the context of its own time, since we are more or less the inheritors of all these writings. So I noticed that a theme that goes through many writings from Torah on, all the way through Psalms and everything else, extolling God's greatness among others, meaning among other deity type things, other hosts, other gods, and so on and so forth. And I was just, it made me wonder, since clearly we are assuming that the Psalms were sung in the big temple, since we even have some of the musical notations, as you say, Selah when you're supposed to stop, and it was a crowd thing. Who the crowd was, whether there was always a frequent need to extol God as the greater among the many, knowing that the crowd were still dabbling at the many, maybe, and yet the deepest statement we have in Judaism is Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And yet we are talking many, 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 many times about Adonai being amongst all others. So this interesting contrast, which I'm assuming has something to do with who the audience was.
So let me react to Shula with a variety of things that she evoked. First, what's the context of having heard Psalms? The Levites were the singers. We see that in the first temple. In 1 Chronicles, for instance, our composer, or at least attributed composer, Ethan, is called, quote, the Levitical singer and player of bronze cymbals. And so there was a orchestra of Levites on the Temple Mount for the pilgrims, because there was an awareness that music and poetry was the experience. As we began our session today, Irene was mentioning watching from Manchester, England on our screen, said that she watched the first time the American inauguration and was very moved by the music, which is to say, the music of an experience creates the emotional tone. And so Psalms were, as you note, Shula, put to music and sung by the Levites on the Temple Mount. Another image, there were 15 marble steps going up, or made, I don't know what they were made from, limestone perhaps, going up to the temple. You can see them now if you go to Jerusalem. And there was a psalm for each of the 15 steps. The sense of rising up to be in God's presence and greeted with the orchestra and poetry to evoke the sanctity and create the moment. At the same time, for the second piece, Shula, of your comments to react, we don't know who the author is and when it was written. Some say of this psalm that it was written, as is often traditionally ascribed, by King David, or on behalf of King David, when he was in trouble, saying, God, you promised you were going to help me. This is the moment. Others say that it was written even as late, meaning go forward 1,000 years, or first stop at the end of the first temple, 500 years, or even later. What's true is the first temple gets destroyed in the year 586, gets rebuilt, at least as a process starting 70 years later, which meant that for 1,000 years, worship was largely in a place of gathering with music, with community. And that's the last point to react to in terms of your sharing, Shula. This psalm refers to those around God, and that's understood by Bible commentaries in 3 ways. One, that it's evoking an earlier mythology. Robert Alter, the great literary translator, professor at Berkeley, in his commentary to this psalm, will say that points to Canaanite mythology, still present as an early psalm. The second possibility, which is the more common way it's understood, is that God is a king with a court, and these are the angels around God being made reference to in celebration of God's being the King of Kings, with the court, like in Isaiah 6, of the minions, the angels, singing, Kadosh, 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 holy, holy, holy is God. And the third, widely commented on also among medieval and by us as readers, is it's referring to all of us who choose to draw close to God. Those who are pilgrims in Jerusalem would surely have heard themselves as being addressed. Not all psalms were necessarily, last comment, at the Temple Mount. This particular psalm is in traditional Jewish liturgy, sung on the Saturday night before Rosh Hashanah in the Ashkenazic tradition as part of those penitential prayers. Otherwise, where this prayer resonates is verses 16 to 18. Happy is the people who know the Truah. 16 to 18, we chant right after hearing the sound of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. So it's about God's kingship, evoking the longing both for God as king, but because of where it's taken from, Psalm 89, knowing context matters, it's saying to God, remember you are to restore our Davidic king, reclaim our unity in the Holy Land. And so it's a double entendre when we echo this psalm to God upon hearing the sound of the shofar. All right, Julia. Thank you, Cantor Shula. Julia?
This is not such an interesting comment after all of that beauty, but in Psalm 85, we looked at how justice, peace, hesed, and emet are these four attributes of God. And here is exactly the same, except it's righteousness and justice instead of justice and peace. Do you have any comments on the relationship between righteousness and peace, why one might feature here rather than the other?
So I love the line that Julia, and it delights me, Julia, when you make reference to something we've studied together last week. Psalm 85, verse 11, are a description of the future, the longing, and the lines are Chesed ve'emet nifkashu, kindness and truth meet together, tzedek v'shalom nashaku, justice and peace they kiss. And here the emphasis is more on two of the qualities, chesed ve'emet, the first two in that order in verse 85. I would only read into it, Julia, to say that the most commonly characterized attributes of God are chesed ve'emet. And that's the need for the ruler. Kindness, mercy, love are all synonyms for chesed. It's an emotional quality. And emet is truth. There's a midrash on the verse that you just put our finger on. A midrash is an early rabbinic imagining. And the imagining is that chesed is Aaron. Aaron is the one the rabbis identify with peace. Ohev shalom v'rodev shalom. He loved peace and he pursued peace. And that's chesed, mercy and kindness. That's Aaron. And emet, in that midrash, that early of the first centuries of the Common Era rabbinic imagining of what this verse is describing, is Moses. Why? Moses is the lawgiver, the one who is of justice, emet, a right and a wrong, which is kind of understood as the strict component for order. And the rabbis comment, and in Shemot Rabbah, they say that for the Exodus to have occurred, for Moses to have led the people from slavery, there needed to be the combination of Aaron's chesed and Moses's mishpat. They needed to be a team, that they complemented each other, that leadership needs partners, and partners who have different emphases of qualities. And ultimately, Moses, the lawgiver, needed his brother Aaron, the exemplar of chesed, of kindness, in order for a people to move toward tzedek v'shalom, toward a world of righteousness that enables peace. And so that's kind of homiletical, but I'm glad you raised that. I don't know if I got to share that. Again, like today, there's a lot of preparation and midrash that goes into this, and I'm so glad all the more on inaugural day, I could talk about the need for partnership, chesed ve'emet, together, in order to move forward toward the kissing, to use the image of that psalm, Psalm 86, the kissing of tzedek, justice, and shalom, peace, wholeness. So with that, may we move forward toward tzedek u'mishpat, toward justice and peace. May we do so with chesed, kindness, and emet, with truth. With that, I invite everyone who would need to say Kaddish and then a closing word today from Shula. So those honoring a loved one are invited to join together. As is the origin of Kaddish, it was said after study. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divra kirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayedecho beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach leolam olmei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalal shemei dekudsha barichu le'ela minko birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata damiran bialma v'imru amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Bin Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Osei Shalom B'mromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen. Cantor Shula Kalir Merton, a closing word. You have to unmute. Got to unmute.
I am particularly delighted that today turned out to be the day that I was able to do this. It's historic. And I think that the phrase that we talked about earlier sums it up. Olam b'chesed yibaneh. This is, I think, the thought we should take with us, that loving kindness, menschlichkeit, in the way we relate to each other, the humanity to return to the way we are with each other, to ourselves, on small scale, on big scale, on any possible scale. That's what today should be the beginning or the return of.
Thank you, Shula. A joy to honor you. Olam chesed yibaneh. May we indeed build a world on a foundation of kindness and truth. To each of you, tomorrow, Psalm 90, same time. It's the last Psalm of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9:30. It's the Psalm that has this famous line, for 1,000 years in your eyes is like yesterday that has passed and like a watch in the night. So I look forward to sharing Psalm 90. Peace and love to all on a day of celebration.